Welcome in, everybody. It's the time. We did a live podcast yesterday with Ninja Hero, the head of the stream, one of the stream teams we're a part of. Today, we have another treat for you. We are going to be interviewing Justin Vasquez, the studio head of Elastic Games and executive producer on The Last Year, a game that has taken us and this community by storm, a game that has secured a permanent place in the roster. We have some good times already in the bag with this game, and we got some good times coming in. Let me unmute myself here. Let me introduce to y'all Justin. Everybody, welcome in. It's good to have you, Justin. Let me pause the music here so I can listen to you. How are you doing today, Justin?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Of course. Thanks for showing up. This was nice. We got to meet Jay, of course, at the previous year's PAX East and the team. Were you at that convention?
No, I wasn't at that convention. I ended up going to PAX West, but not East.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, that was last year, chat. You know, I tweeted this out after PAX East. I tweeted this out after last year's PAX East. That's going to keep happening. Oh, man. That it was our game to watch in 2019 because of how much better they were doing a couple core mechanics. We are veterans of Dead by Daylight, of Friday the 13th, games that are asymmetrical horror focused, and this game does it quite nice. So you've been to, you said you went to PAX West instead of PAX East. Let's just dive into some of the questions we got for you here. Do you have any specific experiences, convention-wise, that are like more memorable to you than others?
Absolutely. The great thing about conventions like PAX is the amount of enthusiasm and goodwill that you see not only from the players, but from the content creators and the other industry contacts that you're running into. And what we found really heartwarming was the kind of response we were getting in terms of people lining up around the booth to play the game. Some people getting back into line over and over again to play the game multiple times. But my favorite takeaway was that there were some people who were just standing by the booth. We have this setup where 6 people can play a game, and we have 2 setups like that. But above that, we have these large TVs where we're broadcasting the game, and we're switching between people's screens to give the best shots and angles of the matches that are going on. And there were these large crowds that were forming around the booth just to watch the game as it was being played. And I'd often approach these people and say, hey, great to see you here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a good time. I hope you're enjoying the show. And when I'd see people watching for a long time, I'd go up to them and say, if you stand in line, you could play the game. If you had gotten in line when you got here, you could have already been playing. And they'd look at me and go, no, I'm good. And they'd stay there to watch the game, not for 15 minutes, not for half an hour, but an hour to 2 hours at a time, cheering, getting into it. And that's when we really felt like, wow, we really have something special here. It's not just about the game, it's about the show, and it's about the community that this kind of experience could create.
Right. And I actually had a similar experience when I was at PAX East, where I remember we were waiting in line and we were talking to some of the devs, talking to some of the team. And as we're sitting in line, people were just congregating around, and we would get up to groups of people and say, hey, do you want to get in line? There's nobody behind us. They're like, no, it's fine. We're just watching. And that to me was like, we're just watching, like I'm here to play the game. But it makes sense that it was that enjoyable to simply watch, right? You don't even have to play it. And we've had people of our community say the same, where they just like watching us romp around and, all the antics that people get into. So it's a pretty fantastic game, if I do say so myself. So
thank you. We're really happy with how deeply systemic the game is, allowing us to hand over tools to the players and to the content creators and say, here's this fun sandbox with all of these tools. Go make chaos and have fun.
Right.
And the way that people are experimenting with these systems and poking at the edges of them and really trying to, like I said, put on a good show, uh, on top of, playing the game well and doing well in the game. That really gets us excited, because that speaks to the level of showmanship and to the level of entertainment that a game like this could create for people.
Totally. Yeah, I was really impressed with the amount of things you can do in the game. Having been used to a couple other games that are similar in the genre, this was a very interactive title. There was always something to go find, or dodge the killer, go hunt for scrap, all this different stuff. I love it. It's one of the better games I've played recently, Chan. You know what I'm saying? One of the
Thank
things
you.
that yeah, of course. Would you like me to continue complimenting your game? I could do
Well,
it.
I'm sure your listeners want to hear me answer questions more
They do.
than hear us talk about how much we love the game, because
They've heard me say it enough.
We love the game.
Yeah, exactly. They've heard me say it enough, So one of the things that really attracted me to this game was the animation choices, specifically for the ambushes, right? Because you have each killer, it makes the killer feels very unique, where they have specific, really high risk areas that if you pick Slasher, or if you pick the big muscle man, he's like Hulk 2.0, right? It automatically feels different. So how exactly do y'all choose which killer gets the animations that they got? Is there some kind of process there?
That's an excellent question. There's always two sides to this sort of design decision. There's the pure game design side, which is, okay, how can we make the levels more interesting by introducing these certain zones that create more danger for the player and force them to make difficult decisions, force them to either work together, having a good scout who can walk ahead, identify the trap, or force them to say, you know what, we don't know which killer he is. He might be using this one, and that makes this path more dangerous. So we might want to take a longer path around. So from a design point of view, it was always about, how can we create these bottlenecks, these moments, these choices. But from a realization point of view, like you were saying, the giant bursting through the wall, the slasher coming down through the skylight and burying the axe in your head, or the strangler pulling you into the vent, which always gets a big reaction from people. That's really more about tapping into the fantasy here, which is, these are terrifying, almost supernatural killers, and we want to bring people's worst fears to life when it comes to these characters. And so we ask ourselves, okay, what is this character? What is at the core of this character? And what speaks to their character in terms of an ambush? And how can we tap into that, people's greatest fear of this kind of killer? So a great example is the giant, this idea of this huge hulking brute always coming after you is already nightmarish, but the idea that not even the walls can keep you safe, you can't even lock yourself in a room and hope he goes away, because he'll just come right through.
Right.
That's terrifying. And so it becomes this natural extension of, yeah, okay, we want to create a bottleneck at this moment in the level, but this killer just feels like he should be bursting through the wall to come and grab you. And so every time we create a killer, that's what we want to tap into. What is that greatest fear that people have about this type of killer, and how can we bring that to life with the ambushes?
Wow, that is... Chat, you see the passion, It's not just like, yeah, we thought it'd be cool. It's the other side, where it's, yeah, we want to really exemplify the specific motifs of these nightmares, dare I say. Hey,
yeah,
come to life,
So,
hey, I'll get some more shameless plugs in there, We have plenty of time.
We appreciate those.
Yeah,
the more shameless, the better.
Yes, of course. With that being said, you obviously, being the head of the studio and one of the big producers on there, you have a lot of emotional investment in this. But I want to ask you a hard question, if possible. Do you have a favorite child? A favorite killer, a favorite survivor, or are they all just? Do you love them all the same? Do you love your children all the same?
So that is an excellent question. Oh man, it really is like choosing. It's what's the name of it? Sophie's Choice.
Yeah.
Choosing between my kids here. We all here at Elastic feel very attached to a lot of the characters, but of course we all can't help but have our favorites. I personally, whenever I play a video game, I'm a big, tall dude with a loud, booming voice.
Sure.
I play video games to do the things I can't do in real life. And so I often, whenever I get to choose what kind of character I can be, I often gravitate towards playing as a female
Ah,
because I like strong female characters and I don't get to be one in real life. So I gravitate towards those. And so I really got into Amber at first.
okay.
I really like how confident and kick ass she is. And yeah, she does have a bit of an attitude, but I always liked it. She always came off as a real boss girl, and I like
Sassy.
that.
Mm.
Yeah, and I like that. But lately, I've been playing a lot more Sam because I feel like the transition of Sam starting off with very low confidence, and she's just this girl who wants to have friends, and it's like she's almost happy being stuck here with these people because they're
Right.
forced to be her friends, and then having her come into her own when you craft an item and you take down the killer and she gets super excited
She gets
and
pumped
and
up.
yeah, she gets
It's
pumped
awesome.
up. Seeing her come out of her shell in a systemic fashion. This isn't even a crafted story game, like an Uncharted where, oh yeah, Sam's going to hit her beat three-quarters of the way through and then she's going to be confident from now on. No, this is all using the systems that we have designed in the game. That really makes me super happy.
It's awesome.
Um, when it comes to killers, I'm a giant man all the
Ooh.
way.
All right. Oh yeah.
Yeah, growing up, I was a Hulk fan. Even the 80s slasher movies, I was always a Jason fan, that
Mm.
big hulking brute with the high body count. It's just my style.
Oh
And
yeah.
so the slasher, of course, is iconic and he's brilliant and he's fantastic. And the Strangler is so creepy and weird. And,
Oh yeah.
like hearing his voice acting is just top notch. And having him pull you through that vent is terrifying. But there's just something about the giant that I find so satisfying. Just grabbing a survivor and just throwing them across the gym into a hole into the basement. It's that to me is what it's all about.
Oh yeah, and I say oh yeah pointedly, chat. So it's Giant is one of the better characters. I really enjoyed how the first three killers y'all put out are really they have completely different kits. Where you have the Giant, which is a tank. He could take a lot of damage, but he also displaces. He can throw away. Then you have the Strangler, who's not so tanky. He's more squishy, if I can use some MMO terms.
Yeah, yeah.
And he pulls stuff closer, so it's still crowd control, but it's the opposite, where I'm going to pull you away from the group versus jumping into the fray and throwing you out. And then you have the Slasher, who's just like all around consistent, nice DPS. I really like that system alone. I think that's where the entire game is. That's the backbone of the game right there, because then the survivors have to they have to deal with ebb and flow of each killer.
Yes.
Like, do you get more turrets this time? Do you get more medics because the Giant's coming in, or because the Slasher's coming in? Right, that kind of reactive play is very satisfying as a creator and as a viewer. A lot of the people have said, "Wow, that's really cool." You have to change. You can't use just one brawler anymore. You have to go to two of the pipe people. Craft some nice. Get some wire
nice
on the
defense.
pipes.
Yeah, exactly.
Make some more football helmets.
That really warms my heart
Yeah.
because that was exactly the intent we had when designing the killers and the class systems, which we feel really complement each other, along with the crafting system, of course.
Totally.
The idea of reacting minute to minute in terms of what killer is out there and what class you choose in reaction to that, what strategies you employ, is really something that's very important to us. And as you said, we really want each killer in the game to bring to the table a brand new play style, a brand new set of problems for the survivors to overcome, and a brand new set of tactical choices that the killer mains can play with.
Right.
And I'd love to see the community really experimenting with all the systems together. There were certain tricks that only our top killers were doing in the studio. And
Yeah.
now when I go out and play with the community, I see guys with the strangler laying traps, pulling somebody close and then pushing them into a trap so
Mm-hmm.
they can deal with the friend who's coming over to try and rescue them. To me, I'm like, yes, that's
That's a
it. Get
good
creative.
idea. That's a good idea.
Or
Thank you for that.
it is a good
That's a
idea.
good
Yeah.
idea.
Or seeing this one guy as the giant grabbed me in the gym, threw me down the hole, and I went, oh, he Kobe'd me. Yeah, that's pretty smart. But
Mm-hmm.
then when I landed and got up, he had laid a trap there so
Oh,
that he can then spawn out and ambush me right there. And there was nothing I can
wow.
do about it. And even though I died, I just dropped my controller and started slow clapping the guy
Right.
because, yeah, well done, man. Well done.
It feels like chess at that point where you're like
Yes.
thinking moves ahead, and
Yes.
it's like a high risk, high reward because that person who played the giant had to go in the basement, lay the trap, and then also assume or maybe intuitively know that y'all were going to be in range of that. Oh man, that's
exactly
great.
the amount of foresight at that point. I was just like, tip my hat to you, my friend. That's a good
Right.
killer.
Oh man, that's fantastic stuff. Yeah, y'all have talked about we were just talking about the backbone of how y'all were doing a lot of the development and balance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested. I know we have some people in chat and members of our community that are not just viewers; they are also content creators, or maybe one day, game studio workers. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was interested in seeing how fully polished, really, the beta was, and even the version we played at PAX East was. There was like no lag; it was very smooth, and I think a lot of the people are wondering your development cycle. I'm sure there was ups and downs. There always is. How do y'all deal with development cycle woes where there's like a suboptimal time frame? How do y'all? Is there something you do to like hype the people up during that time? Is there something like that?
That's an excellent question. I'd say the most important thing about staying focused in game development is ensuring the team is aligned in purpose.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is we're all there because we love the game that we're making and we all want to make the best possible version of that game. And what that means is sometimes checking your ego at the door and making sure that when we make tough design and development decisions, we're doing it for the right reasons, which is to make sure that the game is the best it can be for the game itself and for the players. And sometimes that means abandoning features that we were prototyping and invested in, but weren't coming together, or it wasn't pulling off exactly what we wanted, and being able to say, that's okay, let's push that aside and move on to something else. And also recognizing those moments of genius that can come from anywhere.
Yeah.
And we here at Elastic try to make sure that everybody is playing the game. They're not just developing it, they're making time to play test and play with our QA team. Right now, actually, we're hosting games with the community. I'm looking outside at the studio and I see two of our devs playing games with the community so that they can understand how the game works, what we love about it, and make those tough decisions that will improve the game in the way that we feel will bring the most value.
Awesome. And chat, just so there's full transparency, today was a patch note release. So
Yes,
some balancing things
correct.
happened. So on the day, you see devs playing with community members to get literal real-time feedback. Fantastic.
That's correct. We really want to listen to our community. We want to be able to continuously improve on the game. And yes, that takes time. So I hope everyone has a bit of patience with us. But we are committed to not only maintaining the live build that's out there now, but developing new features and content that'll hopefully make the game much not only bigger, but deeper and richer.
Right.
And that sometimes requires a bit of agility, a bit of research and discovery, a bit of trial and error, a bit of falling down and picking ourselves back up and going, well, that didn't work, but we learned this. And so let's try to do something different this time around. And so far that's served us well, because for us, quality is number one. And we hope that that reflects in the product that we've put out.
And we thank you. I can tell you that. So this ain't no Bungie here, chat. You know, they're not gonna. Oh, sorry, did I just name drop? Oh, no. Actually, well, maybe it was Activision. We'll see. We'll see. You were talking about how you and the team took systems that weren't necessarily coming together and scrapping them, not necessarily. Putting them in a bucket for later, and then, dare I say, offering it as paid DLC. So thank you for doing that, for choosing to only put out quality stuff. Because
we figured that being focused on doubling down what's good about the game felt like a truer approach to our design philosophy. And it also allows us to, with the team size that we have, make sure that what's going out there is reflective of the level of quality that we want. And we do plan on releasing new features and new content in the future. And we know how important community is, which is why we're not interested in charging for maps or for killers or for survivors, because then that becomes a question of like, okay, does the person who has it can only play with other people who has it, and it starts to split the community. And we think that, once you paid to get into the park, you should be able to go on all the rides.
That's a big deal. Thank you for saying that. That's a big deal.
So for us, you're here to play. We want you to play. And it's the best strategy for us, and it's the best strategy for you guys. So that's where we're going to be going in the near future.
Chat, you heard it here first. This is one of the heads of the studio, saying that maps, characters, they're going to be available to all. And this is something that we've actually talked about a lot on stream. It's one of the easiest ways for a developer to segment their community is by pay gating maps and characters behind paid DLC. Right. And it's while it makes sense from a, board meeting monetary budget standard, it is the quickest way to have, especially in a multiplayer game, to have a segmented community. So from the last year player base, thank you. That's
well,
a big deal.
To us, community is very important. It's a big reason why we partnered with Discord, because community is important to them too. And as we move to other platforms in the future, we want to grow the community, not split it apart. So we're going to do everything we can to ensure that the community has everything they need to stay together, stay cohesive, continue to have fun, continue to be able to play with each other. And we just want to be able to provide you with more toys, with more rides.
Yeah.
Just fill in that sandbox with more fun.
That's a good way to think of it. I like that. You mentioned sticking together as a company, and I was going to ask this question, but you kind of already hit on it. Again, I want to talk about some company culture tips, if possible, and you already kind of hit on one of your core values, it sounds like. Is that one of your core values, sticking to like the pride of this thing you're making together? Is that something that you as a team talk about, or what other kind of company culture tips do y'all have?
That is an excellent question. And it's one that, in my opinion, is not asked enough. The tricky thing about culture is that if you don't consciously create your culture for your people will unconsciously create your culture for you. And it might not be the kind of culture that you want to be a part of.
Right.
So for us here at Elastic, it is paramount that as we develop and as we grow, that leadership is constantly focused on creating the sort of culture that we want to be a part of and that reflects our values. And right now, I think community is a big part of it. Right now, Elastic is still very small, independent type feel of a studio.
Yeah.
and it means that we have to stick together and band together, and a lot like the survivors in our game, when the monster of development troubles rears its head and sticks a new problem in front of us, instead of running in all kinds of opposite directions like chickens with their heads cut off, we have to come together and strategize together and plan together and figure out a new solution that, who knows, could even be better than what we had previously thought of.
Mm-hmm.
And so that sort of community collaboration is something that we want to reflect not only in the mechanics of our game, but in the kind of community that we're creating on our Discord server right now with the Discord player base, and as we grow the player base on other platforms.
Awesome. Yeah.
The other big part of our culture is, yes, we're an independent studio, but we like to think of ourselves as what we're calling triple I. Ooh. Where we have that indie dev culture, that fast-paced, small team, bootstrap, let's find a way to get her done with the people that we have. But at the same time, we want to hit that level of quality that is normally associated with a AAA studio. We want people to look at the game, and if they weren't told that it was an independent studio, they wouldn't be able to tell that it was made by an indie studio.
I like that. Yeah, triple I.
And so that commitment to quality is sometimes difficult. It's scary. It's really terrifying, because there's that constant push and pull between, well, now we have this product out there and we have a fan base that we love and we want to show as much love and support to as we can. But at the same time, we don't want to rush anything out quickly just to say we've done it, or just to possibly appease them, because we know that they're not going to be happy with it until we put our whole heart and soul into it. And what that means for us is we have to constantly make the tough decisions that are going to ensure that what we're putting out there has as much attention to detail as everything else we've done, has that speed of execution that hopefully will keep the community engaged. But at the same time, we're always thinking of how can we delight our customer with something new, something different, something innovative, something game-changing.
Right. And as a community member, thank you for... I feel like I'm just going to be a broken record tonight. We're like, yes, I agree. Thank you for the whole night. But that is exactly, as a player, what I'm looking for, is a dev studio that is not just going to push something out because, hey, it's been a quarter, it's time for new content. You're pushing stuff out because you believe in it and because you've QA'd it and you've tested it and there's quality. So thank you for that, because again, it's so easy to point to any game studio nowadays that just says, all right, here's the new paid DLC, here's the new chapter, whatever you want to call it, and it comes out, and there's always going to be bugs when something comes out. We've expected that. But in terms of bugs, there can be less, and y'all have done a great job with that so far. So thanks for that.
Thank you. And we'll continue to do so. Today's patch, for example, contains some bug fixes, some balance updates, and we just put one out, and we're going to kick off a new one tomorrow.
Sweet.
Because the truth is, we're going to be doing this until the servers shut down on the game.
Yep.
There's no reason for us to stop supporting what's already out there just to focus on new content.
Totally.
Just like there's no reason for us to only focus on what's out there now and not try to create something new for the fan base. But it is a challenge, especially at this level, striking that balance. And we appreciate all the support that the community's shown us. And we just want them to know that we're hard at work and we're going to continue to support this game for as long as they'll let us.
Gotcha. Yeah. And we'll be here, so
thank you.
This is this is something, Chant, that you're seeing, and we saw this yesterday as well with iNinja Hero, is that you can tell with not just the finished product, but the people working on it, if there's passion in a project, right? You hear Justin talking about this stuff, and it's you can clearly tell it's important to him and the community. Now, you'd think that it would be, but I've talked to some devs in the past, not at Elastic, because they've been nothing but fantastic, but at other studios. And when I talk about their game, there's almost a hint of bitterness involved when we talk about bug fixes or about pushing stuff out. Not so here tonight, chat. Looks good so far. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. It's very important to us. And it's funny. There are a lot of games out there. I'm not going to point fingers or name names, but there are a lot of games out there that are super high quality and really well polished. And I put them in the tray and I boot them up and I start playing them. And I can feel that no love went in. There's no soul to the game.
Right.
And we here at Elastic truly believe one of my video game development heroes is Todd Howard from Bethesda Studios. And I once heard him say something that seems so obvious to me, but it's so true, which is you have to make the game that you want to play.
Yep. You'd think that'd be an obvious fact, you know.
You'd think so, but it's rarer than you'd care for. And everyone, I feel blessed to be a part of Elastic because everyone here believes in the vision of last year and is making the game that we want to play.
Totally.
And we're just so grateful that there are so many people who have responded to it, and we want them to know that we're hard at work on continuously improving this product.
Totally. Yeah, I think one of the big things that people crave is an objective in mind, right? So we recently started playing Sea of Thieves. It's a lot of fun to pick up and go with friends. But right now, the only real goal is to look better. And while that's fun, I know for a fact for me, that's going to taper off my enjoyment over time. So in a game like last year that is... It's not similar to Sea of Thieves in any way, minus the fact that it's a good game to pick up with your friends and jump in, hide and seek antics, the whole thing. So in the future, what kind of features or systems are y'all thinking will resonate the most with the player base to promote engagement? Specifically, some kind of like hour-to-hour system, something to a little carrot in front of the players, if you would, to get us motivated. You know what I'm saying?
I am so happy that you asked that question because I get this question a lot, and allowing me a forum to give an answer is very valuable. So thank you very much.
Appreciate you wanting to answer because, again, sometimes it's not wanted to answer. So go ahead.
So we purposely released the title with a very solid second-to-second experience and a very solid minute-to-minute experience. Like I said before, we wanted to double down on that and make sure it was as tight as possible instead of trying to tack on some half-baked hour-to-hour experience. Okay. And the other reason we did it deliberately is we wanted to see what the player base would resonate with the player base in terms of features of the game and what they would care about and what they actually get excited about. I feel a lot of times hour-to-hour systems and games try to tell me what I care about. You want these things, don't you? And you want more of this. And I'm scratching my head going, no, actually, I'd love more of that and this other thing.
Right.
And it becomes disengaging. So for us, we had some hunches about where we wanted to go. But now that we're seeing how the player base is reacting, we're getting a clearer idea of where we'd like to take the hour-to-hour system. Now, this is a heavy endeavor. A true hour-to-hour system, the one that we want to create, would actually be not just one feature, but several features layered on top of each other. And so I don't want to get into too many details because, I want to keep some tricks up our sleeves. But
keep us in suspense, you know.
Yes, exactly. But more than that, because we're still in a very much a conceptual phase. And so because we believe in iteration here, things are likely to change. But right now we're breaking it down into sort of two main categories. And we want to have an hour-to-hour that engages the players on a very cosmetic level, like you were saying. Things to allow players to differentiate themselves from each other, both on an aesthetic level, but also on an achievement level. So these could be things like, different player skins or weapon skins or other more cosmetic features that allow them to say, hey, look, this is my personal style, or hey, look, I participate in this thing, or I achieved this thing, or I was part of this event. And so therefore I have this thing and I wear it as a badge of honor. And so
Gotcha.
that's one type of hour to hour engagement that we do feel last year has the potential for and would allow for greater diversity when watching the game, especially, content creators would allow them to have a bit more of a personal touch to their versions of these characters.
Gotcha.
In addition, we also feel that there's a lot of potential from a gameplay point of view to have more gameplay changing goals that players can strive toward. And so we're discussing things like, new weapons or new upgrades and abilities that players can strive towards, both as the survivors and as the killers. How
Gotcha.
that mechanism works and how we're going to dole it out, that's what we're still, trying to figure out.
Yeah.
But the thing that's important to us is that if we ever move towards any kind of microtransaction model, we would never charge for things that change the game.
Good.
Those should be earned by playing the game, by spending that time and achieving those rewards through gameplay. If we ever do go down the microtransaction model, it'll only be the cosmetic things that speak to style and unique flavor that we would be, comfortable putting a price tag on.
Perfect. Yeah, and see, chat, they already know. Okay. You put certain perks or certain abilities behind a paywall, and we talked about segmenting the community. That's how you do it. It becomes a, quote, pay-to-win system. Even if the ability is underpowered, someone's going to get frustrated with said ability or said perk, whatever, and then there will be salt. But that sounds
Absolutely.
that sounds pretty great to me. And by the way, just so y'all, I have your ear now, so I might as well use it. There is nothing wrong, and I want this to be very clear, chat. Many of you agree with me here. With a microtransactions are fine. They are more than fine because they give the gaming studio another way to monetize their product, which inevitably leads to better development, better money to put into the team. The entire all the developers, if they have more money, they are happier, which makes them make a better game. As long as the microtransactions are purely and holistically cosmetic, because as you say, Justin, once it starts getting into gameplay, that's when it gets some hairy territory. So that's when it starts
Absolutely.
getting bad.
We see the gameplay changes as a motivator to continue to keep coming back, and as a goal to give to the player, as something that they can achieve in an hour to hour in a long term situation. And having achieved that and earning it, equipping it, and then using it in game communicates a certain amount of dedication to the other players. And that's something we don't want to sully or rob or take away from players. And so it's
Right.
very important to us that if we do an hour to hour system, we do it right and we provide different types of goals for people to strive towards and different means for them to achieve them.
And that's exactly what we want, because I really liked what you said, and I definitely want to feature that. Is many games will say, here's the goal and here's how you grind for it. If y'all are focusing around what is the community already wanting, how do we make goals around that? That makes me happy, because that's even more fun we'll have playing the game. So that's awesome.
Well,
Cool.
that makes me really happy.
Yeah.
I'll give a quick example.
Sure.
In our game, we knew that the showmanship of the killers was something that was really unique to our game, but we didn't expect such a reaction to the execution animations. We love them because to us, it's the biggest part of the fantasy coming to life. It's the biggest showcase for the killer. But we didn't expect people the level of love that we would see when we'd go to these conventions, when these execution animations would happen. People would lose their minds, start cheering and whooping, and when our devs would go out of their way to show different executions, we saw people get even more excited, and so we realized, wow, there's value there to the customer. And so that's an avenue that we should be exploring, but we can only learn these lessons by watching people play our game, by seeing how they react to them, by seeing what they interact with and what they care about. And so we want the community to know that we're listening, we're watching, we are hopefully getting a good read on what it is that's resonating with you, and we want to double down on that.
And that's the way to do it. I do branding and marketing as my day job, and one of the hardest things to tell my clients is you might have a good idea, but you don't know if it's what your intended customer wants.
Exactly.
What you have to do is look at what they're already wanting and formulate your product or your ideas around what they already want. Indeed, go niche, right?
That's exactly right.
This is it's like you already have taken my branding consultation. Good job. But that's exactly that's what you should be doing, Chan. So we have been talking a lot about little systems in the last year. I really like your answer about the hour-to-hour system. That kind of alleviates some of my fears. We all have fears about games that we like. We want them to succeed. I can say a lot of those fears have been put to bed. I do have a bigger question, and this is the one that feel free to talk about this as long as you want. This is a big deal in any PvP game, is balancing. It is the hardest discussion because it's never done. It's always, it's omnipresent. If you put something to 51% and the other's 49, well, people are going to get mad that why is it 51-49? Why isn't it 50-50? Because in my opinion, it can never be 50-50, right? There's always going to be some perk that's really good that the top players are using. Or you saw recently, chat, in Rainbow Six, they just nerfed Caveira, even though at the pro play, she gets almost no play time. They nerfed Caveira primarily because at casual play, she is, quote, frustrating to play against, quote. This is, an interesting way to balance things, but that's what the devs did. So Justin, what, and again, go off, buddy, what does an ideally balanced last year look like to you and the team?
This is a can of worms. Are you sure you want me to talk about this?
Let's open it. Yeah.
Okay.
How much time do we got, chat? Okay, it's Thursday. All right.
If I'm going on and on, my safe word is peaches. Okay.
Peaches. Just remember, chat. Okay, peach emotes in chat. You got it. Okay. We're good.
So, balance is very precarious, especially in a 5v1 game.
Because you have to make the killer strong enough that he can contend. But you have to make the survivors. It has to make the experience fun enough where when you die over and over again, you're still not hating life.
Yes, exactly. And that's one thing that really attracted me to this project, was that even as a survivor, when I would die, it would be so spectacular, so well earned by the killer, and so fantastical to watch that I didn't even mind.
Right.
And that's the kind of experience that we want to create. So here's the real challenge. There's 4 scenarios that we have to balance the game for.
Okay.
Because we want all of these scenarios to be at least somewhat equally viable, but at the same time, at least not genuinely frustrating, and at least somewhat accessible for anyone who's stuck in these scenarios.
Okay.
And so the 4 scenarios are inexperienced survivors versus an inexperienced killer.
Okay.
Experienced survivors versus an inexperienced killer. Inexperienced survivors versus an experienced killer. And then experienced survivors versus an experienced killer.
I see where you're going. Yeah.
Now, obviously, that last one is the one we need to pay the most attention to,
Mhm.
because hopefully most of the community will eventually end up there.
Yeah.
The longer they play the game, they'll all kind of gravitate towards that, and the community will be able to help inexperienced get to that level. The second most important one, I would say, is inexperienced versus inexperienced. Because at that point, everybody's sort of discovering, and it has to be accessible and intuitive enough that people can start figuring things out, but still a little uncomfortable and scary, so that when the monster comes out of nowhere, it's a memorable and fun experience.
Yeah.
And at the same time, for an inexperienced killer, we have to give them enough tools and enough leeway that they can make a few mistakes but still feel like they're effective and that they pulled off a few cool tricks
Yeah. I think that's a good place
to
to start.
to incentivize them to come back and try and get better. So everything we're doing is in relation to those four scenarios. And the tenets that we have to keep coming back to are the killer has to be incredibly scary and frightening,
Okay.
but at the same time can be overcome, and therefore therefore needs to be more strategic and make interesting tactical choices to be able to come out on top.
Gotcha.
We don't want to encourage just running in kamikaze style, swinging punches, and you're going to wipe everybody
Wipes
out.
the team.
No,
Right.
we want killers to have a certain sense of style, a certain sense of of strategy and tactical gameplay that you should be able to differentiate a novice killer from an experienced killer by the choices that they're making.
Right.
Now, on the flip side, on the survivor side, again, we have to make it accessible enough that if they start poking around at the systems, they can get a hand on things. And even if they stay their base selves, if they work together, they should be able to at least fare somewhat well. And that's the
Right.
key. We really want to encourage cooperation in this game mode for the survivors.
It's essential.
It is essential.
You'll die so fast.
Absolutely. And I've played a ton of games where somebody wanders off and then they get slaughtered by the killer and they go, the killer's OP. And it's like, dude, you were all alone in one room against the hulking brute. How
Yep.
do you think you'd do in real life in that situation?
You do read the forums. You
Yeah.
do. That's a common
And
thing.
so that fear of the killer should not lead to frustration. It should lead to them making better decisions and working together and listening to each other and communicating. So the choices we're making in terms of balancing are to lead people towards that.
Mhm.
And we're hoping that that's what people are enjoying about the game, because that's what we feel is unique about the game. We're always very conscious of how people are actually playing the game and seeing like, oh, actually they're doing this, so maybe that's a player behavior we could encourage or could design for. But right now, that those four scenarios and those four scenarios I discussed, and those two factors of the killer being scary but at the same time having to make smart choices, and the survivors being competent but at the same time needing to stick together, is where we're moving toward.
I
That
like
being
that.
said,
Okay.
yes, we released a patch today. More patches will come because this is something I want the community to understand. This is something we need to ingrain in ourselves at this point. And if I have to say it 1,000, a million times, I will.
Okay.
We are going to continuously listen to the community, and we are going to be balancing and bug fixing this game till the last day, till the servers shut down. We will not stop because we know that balance is a precarious thing, and it's something that we're going to have to keep tweaking, especially as we, create new features and new content.
Right.
And so we ask that the community have patience, be as open as they can about what it is that's frustrating them, and also help us diagnose problems, help us understand what it is, the feeling under the feeling, or the mechanic under the feeling, I should say.
Sure.
When we get feedback like, "Oh, this thing killed me and it sucks," there's
Yeah, how
not
do you
much there's
balance
not
around
much
that?
we can do with that.
Yeah.
When people take the time to say, "You know what? I don't like this mechanic because everything I try to do with it doesn't seem to work, and therefore it's frustrating," or "My expectation when I have this kind of feature is that this will happen, but instead this is happening." Those kind of identification of problems, that really is valuable to us, and it's something that we can quickly turn into an action item to turn around.
Right. It actually is quantifiable. And
Yes.
someone saying the game is frustrating. Okay, why? How? Where? Like
Exactly.
how? If anybody that says that is just simply frustrated, and this is why I would highly recommend that y'all catch the ears of content creators that you trust and listen to what they say. And I'm sure you guys are already doing something like this, because it's easy for any gaming studio. I do point to Blizzard at this. Something that Blizzard does well is that they have a vision for their game. They fully test it, and then they put out their content, and there's always backlash to new maps and Overwatch, new characters, all this stuff. But if they listen to a couple, I don't know if it's a couple, it's probably more than that, but a few key content creators and a few key movers and shakers in the space, and they don't treat their word as gospel, but they take it to heart, right? And I feel like that's what you're talking about, where you and the team, and stop me if this is wrong, are going to take certain community members' advice and certain community members' posts, because we are going to be giving you quantifiable posts. It's the ones that I think you should be listening to, or the ones that are like, hey, I didn't really like this mechanic. This is why I think it could be improved. Here's a couple ways. Here's why it was frustrating to me. What do y'all think? That's so much better for y'all as opposed to, yeah, I don't like the game. I don't know. It's not for me. Like, that's not going to help.
That's the thing.
So.
If it's not for somebody, it's not for somebody, and that's
right.
We respect that. But I know that when a player comes to us and is frustrated, it still comes from a place of love.
Sure.
They're obviously playing the game, and they're obviously trying to get over this frustration. But if we can't diagnose the problem, then we may never get to solving that frustration. And that's what scares me the most, is not identifying a bunch of problems and rebalancing the game to try to make it a better, more well-rounded experience. It's those few problems we can't sniff out because we can't get the right kind of feedback from our community. And for us, that would break our heart, because we want this experience to be as fun and as exciting and as cool and as balanced as possible.
Totally. Yeah, it is a hard, it is a balancing act, indeed, to balance the game. This is something that
Yes.
Waffle in chat says, is that content creators should not be the only ones listened to for balance, though. 100%. Yeah. And I want to really bring that home, that one of the worst things I've seen gaming studios do is listen to the vocal majority when it comes to balancing. There's a couple, I'm not going to name names, but a couple gaming studios in the past that we've played games for that I don't really play anymore. They have announced, and not y'all at all. I would tell you, okay, if it was you, okay. A couple gaming studios have announced new features and said, what do you think? And then the forums blow up, and the feature isn't even out, but they just announce that they're thinking about doing it. And because of the vocal minority's outcry, they decided to scrap the system. And while I think there's something to be said about the merit there, as long as it's in line with what you and your team view for the game, put out the content. Because you, at your core, and I can tell you this just by talking to you for a little bit, you will listen to the right people, because this is important to you. It's not just some cash grab. It's not just something y'all are doing to make money. Obviously, you have to get paid. It's a product that you've made. But it's really easy to tell if someone cares. So it sounds like y'all are going to make the right decisions there. And also, thank you for highlighting those 4 stages, because I couldn't have said it better myself. We talk a lot about business here, about game balance. We talk a lot about dev decisions and why I don't or do play certain games. That breakdown is exactly what I'm talking about, where you have the 2 biggest buckets at the beginning and the end, right? You have the experienced players that are playing all the time, and they're awesome. And then you have the beginning players. It's very difficult, chat, and you know this, to make the game fun for veterans and have attainables that you have to grind for, versus someone who picks up the game with their friends and plays and isn't frustrated to the point of I'm never going to play again, but is still challenging. Right? That is a tight rope that y'all are walking on. So good luck there. I think you have the tools to be able to do it. Definitely.
Thank you. And like I said, we're going to be doing it till the day the servers shut down. So, we're dedicated to this game. We want to make it as good as we can, and we're going to continuously listen and continuously try to do our best to improve it.
Awesome. That is fantastic. Chat, we've been hearing a lot of super intense questions about last year, but I haven't really heard anything about Justin. He's our featured guest tonight. So I wanted to ask you, what are some games that you, and yes, the team, but you're here, what are some games that you're looking forward to in the coming year? I know that this past year y'all were busy with launching the game, so I'm sure there wasn't a lot of time for recreation. Are there some games that y'all are looking forward to?
Well, to be honest, the games I'm looking forward to the most are the ones that I've piled up in my backlog. I like you said, we were very focused on shipping this title at the end of the year, throughout 2018, but especially at the end of the year leading up to our launch on Discord. And while we still have a lot of work to do, we're hoping to get a little bit more time to game and see what other people are up to.
Totally.
Because the more games that we play that are inspiring, the more we can funnel that love back into last year. And there were a few games that I had my eye on last year.
Last year?
Yeah, you're right. It is going to happen a lot.
It's just going to happen.
That, unfortunately, because of our production schedule, I just didn't have enough time to go back and get into. So the big three, obviously, are Red Dead Redemption 2. I haven't had a chance to play it yet. I was a huge fan of Red Dead Redemption, and horrible development stories aside, I do know that a lot of people put a lot of love into that game, and so I really want to see what comes out of it. And Rockstar has always been a game changer when it comes to open world. So I really want to take a look at that. I'm also a big comic book fan at heart, so I'm dying to get my hands on Insomniac Games Spider-Man.
Yes,
that's really I've been hearing really great things about it, and in my opinion, there hasn't been a truly brilliant Spider-Man game since probably Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation 2,
like back in the day.
Which I played so much that I burnt my TV out. So there have been some interesting ones since then, but nothing that's really captured my heart the way that one did, and I'm hoping that this one will do the same. And from what I've heard, it's getting, from all the feedback, I think it might be the one.
Right, totally.
And lastly, the one that snuck into my radar again is actually No Man's Sky.
Ooh.
I played No Man's Sky right when it came out, and had a similar reaction, I think, to a lot of people, where I said, they promised a lot. Some of it's there, some of it's not. There's some potential here, but not enough to keep me coming back.
Right.
But, I, as a developer who's doing something very similar, where we're putting out the first version of a game and now we're going to build off of it, I have to say I got to respect what Hello Games has done. They buckled down and they just kept putting out content and new features and bug fixes and balance updates. And now I'm looking at the game and going, oh my God, this looks completely like a brand new game. And so I've been meaning to get back in there and see if they've been able to deliver on their initial fantasy that they were promising. So I think those three I've really got my sights set on.
Awesome. Yeah, No Man's Sky. I was the same. I didn't play it at launch, but I was following the controversy, all that. And I was disappointed in the studio. However, exactly as you say, they have put out a I would say, compelling amount of content. I've been keeping a sharp eye on it. And maybe it'll be coming to stream soon, chat. We'll see. But it's definitely on my watch list. Awesome.
But I gotta hand it to them. They didn't just put out content. They weren't just making the game bigger. They were making it deeper. It seems that's to me what's super compelling is that they weren't just like, here's some new chapters or new whatever, or here's planets. It's really like, we're gonna take these systems and we're gonna make them as deep as we can. And I gotta admire that. And it's exactly the kind of development philosophy we have here. So it'd be hypocritical of me not to revisit the game, give it another shot, and see what they've accomplished.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a perfect thing to fade out in. Justin, this has been a great talk. I gotta say, I was already impressed with the game, but hearing from one of the heads of the studio, chat, the executive producer, there was no faith needed to renew, but I have even more faith. Okay. I've talked to a lot of gaming studio heads and members of dev teams across various companies at PAX East and in some DMs and various things, and there's some real passion behind what you're talking about, and it shows. So thank you, chat, saying we appreciate it. There's poggers in chat, the whole thing. So Justin, thanks very much. I'll give you the last word. Whatever you'd like to promote, even if it's your game, say whatever you want, man. So thanks again, and I'll give you the last word there, bud.
Thank you so much for having me. It means a lot to us to be able to speak directly to our fans, to our community. So I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you having me here. And to everyone who's listening, we just want you to know that big things are coming for Last Year the Nightmare in 2019. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but we really want to knock your socks off. And so we're going to keep plugging away at it. We're going to keep supporting the live build. But we have a few tricks up our sleeve that we hope will really, really impress you and pay off your love and dedication to this game.
Awesome. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say one more thing from chat. They want me to make sure that I tell you that my killer is fantastic, and if you would like to die to it, you're welcome to do so. So it is a PvP game after all, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Awesome. Well,
and
thanks
of course,
again. Go ahead.
Come hang out with us. If you haven't already, come join the Last Year Discord server. Come hang out with the devs. We play with the community every Thursday, and being a part of the Discord channel is the best way to be a part with that.
Definitely. Well, you'll be hearing from me in that Discord. I'm already a part of the Discord. You'll be hearing from me a lot more. From full disclosure, I have been working too hard at my day job, so I've been unable to participate as much as I want to. But after this, guarantee you'll be seeing more of my name. So thanks again, Justin.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks, buddy.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming out. I'm going to fade it out, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks very much.
Ciao.
Chat, it was great, wasn't it? That was great. You can really see some passion in the way. This is not some grunt in the company, chat. This is the big kahuna, okay? This is the big one. And you got some serious quality. If stuff at the top, chat, okay, is good, great, it trickles down to quality at the product level, okay? This is how it works. All right, and Justin Wong, ladies and gentlemen, here is the Twitter, okay? Sorry, Justin Wong, kill me. That's the Justin.tv. Justin Vasquez, at BrotherJustin26 on Twitter, okay? Go follow him on Twitter to get all the updates. Look at that, we're retweeted. Isn't that fantastic? You can go pick up Last Year the Nightmare right now on the Discord store. This has been another episode of the Sanctum Sessions podcast. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to follow or subscribe on all the big platforms. We're on all of them. This podcast is supported by our Patreon. Head over to patreon.loru.tv for exclusive podcast rewards. Special thanks to our Pinnacle patrons, Falinor Lighthawk and RJ Lynn. Once again, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next time.